Welcome back. It's Harris Hastings in Dover. We are the masters of the midday. Us. We roll 10 to 2 every single day. We were talking about it, the college football playoff that will, of course, follow championship weekend in college football. And joining us right now to talk a little bit about college football, look around the NFL a little bit, because this man is going to be on the Big Championship game with Compass Media Network, something you'll hear right here on 92.5. He is Tiki Barber. Tiki, it is Josh, Ryan, and Scott. How are you, sir?
I'm good, guys. How are you all? Happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you.
Happy holidays.
We appreciate you taking the time with us. And we were just getting into it a little bit. Tiki, love to just bring you in on that conversation before we talk a little bit about that Big Ten game. What do you make of the Cincinnati situation now? Undefeated, behind two teams with two losses, and the AAC commissioner saying they're a little upset with this positioning for the Bearcats.
Yeah, I mean, they should be upset with the positioning. They've had an unbelievable season so hard. I mean, they beat all comers and weathered the storm of this coronavirus pandemic season that everybody has dealt with, some better than others. And Cincinnati has done it with great acumen. And so the fact that they kind of are just sitting, like they can't go up, they don't go down, they just kind of sit right where they are in limbo has got to be frustrating for them. But I think it tells a larger story about the college football playoff and what they are looking for. And that's the marquee names. They want the teams that are going to draw. This is not the NCAA tournament. They don't care about the Cinderella or the underdog or the what if story that seems to be playing out. For a time it was two teams. It was Cincinnati and BYU. BYU risked themselves by playing Coastal Carolina in a middle of the week. Hey, let's play Coastal Carolina. And it's a big risk. If they would have won, maybe it would have elevated their status. They obviously lost that game, but then they took the risk because they had to in order to be considered for the college football playoff. Cincinnati hasn't had the chance to do that, and they'll likely win the AAC championship, but I don't think it's going to affect much, especially when you look at what happened with Florida, 23-point favorite, and you lose to LSU. Yes, I know they're the defending champs, but I mean, come on. Florida falls a spot after that loss. We know what the agenda is.
Well said. That being said, Northwestern, they were kind of having a Cinderella season. I think it was Mel Tucker and Michigan State. Didn't that who beat them? How are you seeing this game? Yeah, how are you seeing this game with Northwestern and Ohio State? Ohio State's sixth game of the season. Yeah,
I love Kevin Warren. I love the Big Ten. I love what they're doing. What they did.
Yeah, Kevin Warren's awesome. Hey, hold on. Tiki, you're an ACC guy, man. You ain't got to say nothing.
Hey, I'm with you, Tiki. Warren's the man. I'm with you, man.
That was pure tongue in cheek, man. That was sarcasm at its best. We're not going to play, and then we are going to play, and we're going to fit it in. We're going to make rules, and then when the rules don't suit us, we're going to change the rules. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Ohio State, if they get into the college football playoff, the semifinal, it is a financial and a perceptual win for the Big Ten and obviously for Ohio State as well. So they changed the rules. I get it. I understand it. It's not dissimilar to, it's the opposite of the conversation we were just having about Cincinnati. But how do I see this game playing out? The only chance that Northwestern has as if they shorten this game, I mean, like really shorten this game, and that's by running the ball, keeping Justin Fields and Chris Olave and Master Teague, those stars of Ohio State on the offense off the field. And Peyton Ramsey's got to be mistake free. Now he's played Ohio State many times. Obviously at Indiana, he played them at well, and he transfers as a graduate, so he's experienced. He knows what's at stake. But we know who the better team is. Pat Fitzgerald is a hell of a coach. I love him, and I think he might get a shot in the NFL in the not too distant future. But this is a heavyweight fight in the middleweight here, and so Northwestern's got to really control the line of scrimmage and control the clock and force Ohio State into some mistakes, not dissimilar to what Indiana did, but. We'll see how that goes. I mean, I'm calling this game. It's going to be fun, obviously, because it's the Big Ten championship. It's in Indianapolis. Odd because it's not going to be a fan in the stands, so it's going to be weird. But it should be a fun one as long as it doesn't get out of hand.
Well, Tiki Barber joining us. He'll be covering, as he mentioned, the Ohio State-Northwestern game. I love Master Teague. You're going to have fun watching him in person. I got to call their Indiana OSU game. But, Tiki, man, I want to take you away from this week. What was it like? I've always wondered this. I've been a huge fan of yours for years. Justin Tuck was my teammate at Notre Dame. He speaks highly of you.
Oh, nice.
Nice. But what was it like being recruited with your twin brother? And that whole scenario. I mean, the recruiting process is so wild, but here you have coaches recruiting both you and your brother. Were there any teams that recruited just one of you over the other? I mean, what was that like?
Yeah, it's a good question. And by the way, much respect to Justin Tuck. He is the dude, man. And not only did he win a championship and X2, and then retire, but he's in Goldman Sachs now. I mean,
VP.
It's amazing.
Ooh,
He is an unbelievable person. Obviously, as an athlete, now as a person, and now as a budding banker. So he was awesome. But it's interesting. You go back to that. What year was that? 1992 and 3 when we were getting recruited. 28 years ago, we got lucky because we both were very good athletes, like above average athletes, actually, because Rondé was a national champion in the hurdles, and I was a really good long jumper. So we had these dual sports successes, both track and field and football, that even if a team didn't, like they were a little worried about you, we're not sure you're going to be a great college player, they could look at our athleticism and say, yeah, but we'll take the athlete. You know what I mean?
We get two. We could get both of them.
Yeah, exactly. So even if the team wasn't like, oh, I love Tiki as a running back and I love Rondé as a DB, they would say, you know what, these kids are stud athletes, man. Look at what they did in track and field. We'll find a place to put them. So if one team didn't want the other, they would obviously take us because of the athletic connection. And it got real easy as we got down to the end. We visited Clemson. We were supposed to go to UCLA, and they were like, dude, we're not going across the country to play football because we're from Southwest Virginia. I didn't really love Clemson at that time. And then we were scheduled to go to Michigan. And that was the school because I wanted to get in engineering, and they have a great engineering program. And the recruiter called us and was like, we're going to have to cancel your trip because there's like 3 feet of snow, and we're not going to be able to have you come in. And if you came in, you'd probably get stuck because we're going to get another 2 or 3 feet the next couple of days. And Rondé and I looked at each other. We're like, yeah, that's not where we're going.
Yeah, this is a sign. This is a sign.
We committed to Virginia the next week.
Hey, listen though. I play with my guy Tree Rollins in Atlanta. Clemson paid well now.
Maybe not at the time. But Tiki, you mentioned something there, Tiki. You also ran track. I try and do this as often as possible because you and I see athletes now. They're getting steered to one sport at 14, at 9. You know what I mean? I mean, what do you have to say to the parents who want to specialize their kids in one sport?
It's the skills you develop doing something else. So for me and Rondé, it was track and field and also wrestling. So before we got into high school, we wrestled. And so I had such great body control. You know what I mean? Like I knew how to leverage myself and use someone else's weight or leverage against them. And it helped me as a football player. My balance was improved because of that. And so I see this now. And my sons got pushed into this. AJ, my oldest, who just committed to Princeton to play football, was pushed into baseball. Like they wanted him to travel like all year long. Like even in the winter, we're going to do these, these trips when we go down to Florida and South Carolina. And I'm like, AJ, don't do that, right? Like you don't know if you like baseball now as a 13-year-old, 14-year-old, but who knows if in 18 you're going to love it. Try something else. And he played football, but it was just flag football because we lived in the city. We lived in New York City, so there wasn't like organized football like you and I know growing up, right?
Yeah.
And so he kind of liked football, but didn't really. He loved baseball, and ultimately, when we moved to the suburbs, he started playing football, and he was great at it. And interestingly, what made him such a great wide receiver, and in Little League and then in high school, was because of his hand-eye coordination from playing baseball. Right, and I'll give you a perfect example. 2 years ago, he's up at Greenwich now, Greenwich High School. They won the state championship, and AJ had a hell of a day. He had like 160 yards and 3 touchdowns. But he threw one as well. It was like a lateral. Like you throw a long lateral out to the ex-wide receiver, and it was a horrible pass to him. But he snagged it with his left hand, right, and then immediately turned and shifted like a shortstop. You know what I mean? Snag a ball with your left hand, turn, flip it to your right hand, and he threw a touchdown pass. And my buddies were watching it. When they watched the video of it, they were like, dude, he looked like a baseball player. The point is, like, these skills that he learned in other sports crossed over to make him really successful as a football player. And the same thing went for me, and I'm sure the same thing went for the previous generation of athletes that are now on the professional ranks. You got to do more than one. You have to, because either you're going to get bored or you're going to get hurt by stressing the same muscles over and over again.
Well, two of the best NFL quarterbacks right now had a little involvement in baseball with Patrick Mahomes and
Justin
dad,
and Justin Fields too, who you'll see this
Justin
weekend.
Fields, Kyler Murray in Phoenix, Russell Wilson up in Seattle.
That's right, and that's why they can throw in all those arm slots. I mean, they talk about it all the time. It's become like you hear it all, like these arm angles and these slots and these off balance throws. It's why Pat Mahomes is so exciting to watch, because you can't put him in a position where he's going to make a bad throw, right? He like, his body is just contorted and the ball's still like right trajectory, right velocity. It's amazing. And that's because of playing baseball. It's because doing other things. And I agree. I can't stress enough to parents, let your kids do everything, because you don't know what they're going to love. And eventually, if you push them too hard at one thing, it's going to burn them out. We've seen it way too many times.
Hey, you played in an era, when you think about it, think of some of the Hall of Fame quarterbacks you got to see, Elway, Montana, and probably got Young in there as well, and Phil Simms, and Eli. I think you got Eli for a while. I mean, Peyton Manning, you saw them all. Where does this young group of quarterbacks stand for you and the possibility for their future?
Yeah, they get to the heights. They've gotten to the heights much quicker. Like, I remember Peyton, and I'll bring him specifically because I knew him in college, because his wife Ashley and I were in the business school at UVA together. So I met Peyton when he was a junior at Tennessee. And so I followed his career closely, intimately, obviously, and obviously played with his brother. But I remember early on, I mean, he was good, but he was bad. Like, he'd do a ton of interceptions, and it was a process, right? It was a process of getting good. Nowadays, because offenses has simplified, like what we see in college, like what I'll see this weekend, what you guys have seen, obviously, in college throughout the last few years, all these principles are in the NFL now. Right? They're one reads. It's not like you're going through an entire process of finding the open receiver and understanding what a defense is. It's give me one read, get the ball out of my hands. If not, I'm going to scramble and move the pocket a little bit, and we get in the scramble rules. And these guys, because they're so athletic, they're able to play right away and be successful right away. And so it's a little bit different. Now, I worry long term, like, and Mar Jackson is a perfect example here. Is he ever going to develop into a guy that can do those things that Peyton Manning used to do? And I think the answer is no. I think he's a backyard quarterback, and it's awesome. It's exciting. It won him an MVP. But if the defenses get smart enough to contain him and be disciplined in their rush lane, so he can't scramble around, then I think he's limited. But in the way that today's offenses are run and they're allowed to improvise, these guys are finding success really quickly. The question is, how long will they be able to do it? Unlike the Peytons and the Aaron Rodgers and even the Brett Favres in my era that you were talking about, Eli even, can they do it for 17, 18 years? I'm not so sure about that.
We're talking to Tiki Barber. Tiki, a couple more minutes with you, and we appreciate the time. I want to ask you about a couple of running backs in the NFL, and I want to ask you about the Broncos running backs, but I want to do that next because I want to ask you, Tiki Barber, NFL running back, on the Big Ten championship game this weekend. You had one game to win, and you needed a running back. You going Nick Chubb? You going Derrick Henry?
Man. God, that's a tough question. That is a really tough. You can't go wrong either way.
Right, yeah.
But I've been saying this for, I don't know, a couple of years now. Someone asked me, like, who are in your top five? And I said, it's probably Zeke and Saquon and Chris McCaffrey, because he does so much. And I said, you know what? I can't exclude Derrick Henry. I put Nick Chubb in that top five also, simply because he's a grinder. But I said, I can't exclude Derrick Henry. They looked at me kind of cross-eyed. This was before he led the league in rushing a few years ago. And I said, the reason is because a running back needs to do a couple of things. One, he's got to be reliable and not turn the football over and be an asset in pass protection. And then two, and maybe this is most important, when you have to end a game, right? You have to run out a game. You got to trust the guy. And Derrick Henry, not only do you trust him because he's going to get 3 yards in a cloud of dust, maybe 4 or 5 yards in a cloud of dust. There are times, and I think I've seen this at least 5 times, where he's hitting his head on the goalpost. You know what I mean? He's going 60 yards in a 4-minute offense. There's 9 guys in the box. And at that point in the game, it's like, dude, I want to hit this. I'm not hitting him no more. Right? I'm turning this down, right? The game's over. They got the lead. I'm turning this down. And he scores touchdowns, right? And now we're seeing that with, 300 carries. Early in his career, he was only getting 180 or 90 carries a season. Now he's up to 300, and he gets stronger as the season goes on. And I'd probably say Derrick Henry because there's so many ways you can use him. Now he's not as good as a pass catcher, obviously, but even Nick Chubb doesn't have to catch a lot of balls. That's more Kareem Hunt for the Cleveland Browns. So I'm going to go Derrick Henry. I love what he does in the 4-minute. I'm old school like that, even though I wasn't necessarily a 4-minute back. But I appreciate what he does when he's getting the football. It doesn't matter.
And then the last one I got for you, Tiki.
Wait. No, hold on. Same question. Walter Payton, Barry Sanders.
Ooh.
Oh, Walter, no doubt. I mean, I'm biased because I grew up a Walter Payton fan. I love that man. I mean, one of the great regrets I tell people this when they ask about him because my coaches knew him. Eric Studesville, because he was in Chicago.
Time here in Denver, yeah.
Walter around. Yeah, and he was in Denver, of course.
Yep.
And he said he was just the greatest man ever. And when I got into the league, I never, and I was like, not a peer, but I was like on the level where I could have met him. I never got a chance to meet him before he passed away. And it's like one of those regrets because I loved him. I loved watching. That's why, football became my favorite sport when I was young. Seeing what he was doing, I was 10 years old when they won that Super Bowl and the Super Bowl shuffle. And it was like, man, Walter Payton is the man. But I never got a chance to meet him. So Walter, without a doubt.
And then I want to ask the same one there with the Broncos.
Yeah, just John Randall for me with the Vikings. I watched him as a kid, and I was like, oh, he's got the paint on his face. He's crazy.
John Randall? Come on, man. That dude was insane. He
nuts.
Was crazy. Nuts. Man, I remember playing against him, and he does not shut up. I mean, even when you're losing and you're beating them, and he's getting pinned and pancaked and dragged and everything else, he's still talking. I'm like, bro, do you ever stop talking? And he's talking trash too. Man, he was intense. He still is intense, by the way.
Yeah.
Last one for you, Tiki. I want to get it in here. It's the Broncos running back situation. Yeah. Melvin Gordon, Phillip Lindsay. Phillip Lindsay, we know all about him, undrafted, all that good stuff, and then they go get Melvin, give him $16 million. What do you think of both of those guys? Kind of the dual back of the Broncos.
Yeah. So. I mean, this is the way we're going in the NFL anymore. Unless you have a guy like Chris McCaffrey who plays 100% of the snaps, and we see how detrimental that can be because he's basically going to miss this entire season. Most teams are going with the dual backfields. Derrick Henry is one of the exceptions as well. Nick Chubb, who you talked about, it's also Kareem Hunt. I love this backfield, and for a while I was concerned that Melvin Gordon, when he came over, was going to be disruptive to what they were starting to build with Phillip Lindsay because he's so dynamic, right? Yeah. There's very few players that you put on the field and you're like, and I'm scared of this guy whenever he touches the football, and that's Phillip Lindsay. The problem is his size. What is he? 190? He's like 5'8", 190, and you get fearful that you're going to wear him out. Now, with that being said, there's been guys. I mean, I was only 5'9" and 205 pounds, and I carried 300 times a year. But in today's NFL, they worry about that guy. So I think that size of that guy. I think the two-back combo works for Denver. The question in Denver right now is, what can Drew Lock evolve into? I know they like him. I know they love his swagger. I know the guy's he's cool as hell in the locker room. He's that dude, but he's got to get more consistent, and they got to stay healthy in the wide receiving core, obviously as well. But I like the skill position players in Denver. I really do, and they're going to have some decisions to make, both coach wise and personnel wise this year. But I'm bullish on Denver, especially in the short term.
Hey, Justin Tuck likes that. He's Tiki Barber. He'll be calling the Big Ten championship game here on Altitude Sports 92.5. Tiki, an absolute honor. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, guys. Be well. Stay safe, obviously, and happy holidays.